As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. We got myself and Steven today. Zook is on a flight going somewhere fancy, so he's not going to be joining us. And we have a home win to actually talk about, as well as some road domination last night against Tampa Bay. But before we dive into all of the good stuff, we do have to mention that Larry Brooks, the longtime New York Rangers beat reporter for the New York Post, passed away today. And, you know, Larry was one of those guys that you actually knew that he was going to call out the team every once in a while. And he was, you know, very consistent with his reporting. Always one of the guys with the Rangers, especially a tight-lipped organization that was kind of first to break everything. He was their legit insider. So a very sad day for the Rangers media landscape with the passing of Larry Brooks, and our condolences to his family and friends and everybody that worked with him at MSG.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about Larry Brooks over the last few years, and all of them are good. All of them are positive about kind of who he was as a person, who he was as a professional, but who he was, you know, more away from the game. And it's such a sad day. Like, he is about as synonymous with the Rangers as, you know, as anybody is. I mean, you know, my favorite, I mean, I'll go back, my first ever like introduction to Larry Brooks is him and John Tortorella, right, going at it in that like 2011, 2012 year. So like it was surreal to kind of wake up and hear about that today. You know, I knew something was up with him, but I didn't know to the extent of what it was. You know, he's a Ranger legend. Like, he's a Hockey Hall of Famer. Like, he is a true legend. And you know, he's going to be missed. I know. I mean, he's going to be missed in the locker room. He's going to be missed on the beat. He's just going to be missed in general. You know, Larry Brooks was a fantastic guy.
I don't know if you saw the New York Post article that came out today about him, but it was actually Tortorella who reached out to, you know, Larry Brooks when he first stepped away from the team earlier this season. So that just goes to show that was water under the bridge pretty early on. I think like a couple of weeks after that incident happened, it was already settled. But that is one of those moments that will live in infamy, right? The two of them going at it. And that was both their personalities, right? Larry obviously seemed like a no-nonsense guy just based on his reporting. And we all know Tortorella was no nonsense in every facet of his life. So that was one of the funny ones and one of the good things that we'll all remember about Larry Brooks, and just an outstanding reporter too. We always got the inside scoop. I mean, I would every single week read his, you know, reports that he would come out with. And most of the time he was pretty on point, especially when things were going bad. When things were going well, he was always very even keeled. Something that we should take away from him, because I know on this show we're not that even keeled.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I mean, you're like quintessential, like old school type of reporter. Like, as somebody, I mean, listen, I'm in not to that degree, but you know, I do, you know, I work in the journalism field. I do it every day, and like, you understand just how, you know, difficult it can be from doing it from the day to day, and for him to do it for 50 plus years, right? Like, it's incredible, right? And again, it's more the stories that I've heard about him off the ice and away from the game that, like, you know, those stick with you. And like, I've had the pleasure of talking with him a few times. He's a great dude. You know, he's as synonymous with the Rangers as, you know, a Sam Rosen and those guys are. Just, I mean, he's been around the same amount of time, just in a different medium. So it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be a weird now season, and weird, you know, year or two now without him. So prayers up to everybody, around Larry Brooks and the Brooks family and all that. I mean, it's such a sad day in Rangerland today.
Yes, it is. So although it is a sad day and a day of, reflection in terms of what Larry Brooks' life was like as a reporter, for the Rangers for, I believe it was close to 5 decades he covered the team. The Rangers have turned the corner, right? And then the last episode that we had, we were talking about how in their centennial season, they're doing things that are franchise records, but on the negative side in terms of their home scoring droughts and woes, and shut out 5 times in their first 7 home games. But we did say, and although I didn't say with a ton of confidence, that on paper that Nashville game was the get-right game at home. And it turned out to be just that. Vincent Trocheck comes back into the lineup. Probably should have been the captain just based on how the Rangers have responded the last 2 games with him in the lineup. Gabe Perreault finally got the call up for that Nashville game as well. He was inserted into the top 6, had a point, his first NHL point. They put up a 6 spot against Nashville, and then they followed that up with a 7-3 road win last night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, albeit a depleted Tampa Bay Lightning team. But they still made a statement. Lafreniere has got a little bit of a point streak going. Will Cooley's got a goal streak going. He looks like he's found his game. Not so coincidentally, it's as soon as he gets put back into a role that he's more familiar with, right? So maybe we do know what we're talking about a little bit, but it's nice to see that the offense has kind of come. We knew they couldn't shoot as low as they were shooting forever, but hopefully this could be a little bit more consistent. And now they just got to figure out a little bit of the kinks on the defensive side of the puck and get back to that full 200-foot game.
Yeah, it almost feels like we overanalyzed to a degree kind of the struggles that this team had for a little bit. I mean, it was as simple, and for a time we had talked about, it was as simple as getting healthy, getting guys playing in their respective roles and where they should be in the lineup. But man, I mean, listen, Vinny Trocheck didn't have a great season last year, and again, he's only played 3.5 games. He got hurt midway through Buffalo, which was the second game of the year. So he's only played 3.5 games. He's got 2 goals. Like, his energy has been apparent through his first 4 games in this season. Like, he is on the puck. He is in the play. He is creating offensively. He's doing the work defensively. He's winning faceoffs. He's winning key faceoffs. And it just feels like him and Perreault have brought this energy that, listen, did we say Perreault needed to be up after the offensive struggles? Absolutely. Like, this team needed some sort of infusion of this young talent, of this speed, of this skill. And it just so happened that both Perreault and Vinny Trocheck come up at the exact same time, which really fuels that fire. And now listen, I don't want to put a damper on all this, but I think we need to temper our expectations before we start going out there and saying this team's a Stanley Cup team again. This is a playoff team. They're back. This is great. Like, again, they finally got their win at home. They got the monkey off the back in that regard. They beat up on a Tampa team that, listen, on paper, they played AHL guys. And, you watch the middle part of that first period through the entire basically second period, that team was on the Rangers' ass for the entire time. Like, listen, Andrei Vasilevskiy played one of the worst games I've ever seen a elite goalie play. I mean, he gave up 3 goals in his first 3 shots. He tripped over basically the crease on the Trocheck goal, and then they pulled him after the second. Like, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen an elite goalie play. Shesterkin's obviously had bad games before. I don't think none to the level that Vasilevskiy had last night. Like, 3 goals on 3 shots I've never seen that happen. Like, I've never, unless I'm playing NHL 26, like, I've never seen that happen in a real game before from a legit NHL goalie. Like, David Ayers didn't give up 3 goals in his first 3 shots. Like, what? That's crazy. So, yes, you beat up on a very bad Nashville team. Again, you had those demons at home. You squash those, and you come out and you beat up on Nashville. And then you go on the road, which, you've played better. And then, you beat up on a team that's led by Scott. I mean, I don't think I saw that top line of Kucherov, Point come off the ice for a decent period of time in the second period. Like, it felt like they were all out there because the back end was JJ Moser and Scott Sabrin and these guys that I've seen in Syracuse play 3 times already this year. Like they fielded an entire AHL roster. So yes, it is good that they are winning games. Let's put a pin in this whole we are back. This next 7-game stretch, I believe it is, that they have, or 6-game stretch that they have, is going to be a huge tell, right? Like they're going to go on the road in Columbus on Saturday, play a back-to-back with Detroit on Sunday, and then head out west again. And they got Vegas, they've got Colorado, and they've got Utah. 3 of the Western Conference's better teams this year. And you know, Colorado is one of the best in the league. They've got 1 regulation loss. They've lost 1 game in regulation this year. So these next 6 games are going to be a measuring stick for this team. You know, they passed it this week. They finally got their first home win. We can finally stop talking about that. They scored 6 goals, and then you go into Tampa and you beat the ever-living daylights out of a bad team, which, like, if you want to look at the flip side of that, 2 weeks ago, they probably lose that game with Tampa having those guys out of the lineup. Like, so yeah, I understand. You got to take your wins when you get it. I'm not upset that they won the game or whatever. Shesterkin had a tough start to that game yesterday, but then he locked it. Like, that was the difference between him and Vasilevsky. Both of them were bad to start the game. Shesterkin was able to lock in, and I think he made like 30 saves or something like that. So at the end of the day, a pretty good night from Igor, despite a start that had you scratching your head when Scott Sabrin was going bar down on him.
Yeah, he stopped 33 at 36, so he really did lock in after that first period. Artemi Panarin didn't
give up another goal. Like he did not give up another goal.
He did not. And, you know, Artemi Panarin shaved his head and has kind of reemerged, I should say, as the focal point of this offense. Again, he's now leading the team in points with 16. Alexei Lafreniere is now up to 12 points on the season. You mentioned Vinny Trocheck. In 3.5 games, he has 5 points. I mean, that's the kind of difference maker the Rangers need. He's actually only 4 points behind JT Miller. So we can have a conversation about whether they named the right guy captain, but based on how the captaincy in New York seems to be like this hex on whoever has it, maybe it's a good thing that Vinny Trocheck didn't get named captain. But all in all, right, 8-1-1 now on the road. That's not something you could snuff at. That's a really good road record. And you mentioned that they got over that hump, right? They finally got that win at home. So I don't want to sit here, like you said, and say, oh, they're back. You know, this is a good team. There still is a lot that they have to prove for a consistent amount of time, right? They've been so good on the road and so bad at home that we need to see where their middle ground really is. But getting over that first hump of winning that home game and now scoring goals in back-to-back games like they just did against Nashville and Tampa, even though you might look at the Nashville team and say that's a bad hockey team and look at Tampa and say, oh, look who they're missing, it doesn't really matter to the players. They still get to build this confidence off of that. Alexei Lafreniere looks like he's playing with confidence, right? You have Trocheck back, and he's kind of revamped this whole forward group. You got guys playing in their spots. Panarin's found his rhythm offensively. So if those guys can continue carrying their momentum, yeah, you do have to like the outlook just because of the fact that Mike Sullivan's system this year has already shown that even when they weren't playing their best, it's still better systematically than it was last season. So we'll see where this kind of leads, right? You mentioned the 7-game stretch. The back-to-back with Columbus and Detroit this weekend is pretty important just because of where those teams are going to be long-term in the standings picture in comparison with the Rangers. You go out west for a couple of games. The Colorado game I have circled just because, you know, I have an attachment with the Colorado Avalanche, but I also would like to see how they stack up against a team that's only lost once in regulation. But they finished that 7-game stretch against Carolina, who was at MSG, shut out the Rangers. That's a game where now you're on the road. You've been good on the road. You've been historically good in Carolina's building. That's a game I have circled as well. Let's see how long this momentum can keep riding. And, you know, there's something to be said for the fact that this is a human sport, right? We look at all the analytics, the numbers, but it's still a sport played by human beings. Confidence is everything. It's supreme. And if these guys can start to find their confidence in the situation where now everybody's kind of back and healthy, if Gabe Perreault can get going and start to produce at the level he did at the AHL and you know, the U.S. national development team in college prior, you start to like a little bit more than you did just a couple of games ago. But it's way too early to really jump back wholeheartedly and say, oh yeah, here we go, playoff time, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, listen, we've said plenty of times, I think, on this show, this team could be a playoff team. And that's not the expectation, right? When we talk about what moves us for this franchise at this point, as a fan of the Rangers and someone that can think critically about this team, like, what does making the playoffs do? What does being a first round exit do? What does being a second round exit do? In the long term, it does not do much. This is a team that has done everything but win the Stanley Cup. This is an organization right now that's done everything but win the Stanley Cup. And, it's just, they're interesting. Like, that's the one thing. Like, I saw what's his face. I forget his name. He looks 75, but he's 30. What's his name? The reporter. Got white hair. Daily Face Off.
Yep.
Yeah, Frank Saravalli. First of all, that was terrifying to me to realize he was 35.
Same age as Crosby.
Oh, God. But, he's talking about how this team's a depth piece away from being a real Stanley. What are you talking about? What are we talking about? A depth piece away from being a Stanley Cup contender. This team is full of depth guys. They have no stars. And also, they have no money. So where are they going to go? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, there's some ludicrous things that I've seen after the Rangers have won 2 games that let's pump the brakes on. But listen, Panarin's still not hitting the net, right? Like, Panarin, for as good as he's been since he's still not hitting the net. He had a couple chances. He could have had 6 points last night if he was able to hit the net. But the good news is his passes are getting through now. That pass that he had, I believe it was to Lafreniere or Trocheck, the Trocheck pass. That pass getting through off the rush was nuts. And again, what's his face? Vasilevsky falls down. Is probably, I think that puck goes in whether he falls down or not, right? But Panarin, it was a sneaky performance from Panarin too. Like, I looked up and it's like, oh shit, he's got 3 points. I was unaware of that. Like, it's not like he's doing it and being the center of attention, but if you can get Panarin going, Mika he didn't get credit for that goal, right? Like, it ended up going off JT, that first one.
It bounced off of Chernak's skate and then actually brushed off the blade of Miller's skate. So Miller did get credit for the goal. Miller
gets the goal. It means Zibanejad has the assist. That's one of those plays where if you've been a fan of the Rangers long enough and have watched carefully with Mika Zibanejad long enough, I don't know who, if anybody in the comments could pull these clips or anything like that. That's a play he had against the Devils, and I believe he also had it against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think it was like the 2021-22 season, where he comes down that rush, and whether it's like a partial breakaway or 2-on-1, he winds up for a slap shot, and he'll fake the shot, and as soon as the goalie stands back up, he just slides it 5-hole. That was so what I was ready for him to do yesterday.
Yep.
But when the bounces go your way, like, that's what happens. And right now, at least for the last 5 or 6 games, the Rangers have had those bounces go their way, and they deserve it. Like, again, they deserved a stinker from Vasilevsky. They deserved that puck from Panarin against Nashville to bounce off of Saros and go into the net. Like, they have earned enough of those breaks earlier in the year by not getting them that you're not apologizing to anybody for scoring 13 goals in 2 games. Take it and run. But again, these next 7 games are going to be a litmus test.
Yeah, and if you look at all the things, right, since Will Cooley replaced Lafreniere on power play 1, and now that you get Trocheck back and you have Perreault up, the power plays are more balanced, right? You could actually roll out the second unit. I kind of like what Sullivan's doing. It's something that we both talked about a little bit in the offseason, is you don't necessarily have to fully change the unit and go with the power play 1 or 2, but you can kind of interchange guys, especially on the fly. And we've seen that Panarin, Fox, they've kind of stayed out for longer shifts, get a little bit of rep with the second unit as well, because you want your skilled guys to be on the ice. But in their last 3 wins, so basically if you look over the last 4-game sample size, they have a power play goal in each of their 3 wins. The one game they don't was the shutout loss to the Islanders. So the power play is slowly starting to come back into form a little bit. And a lot of that could be attributed to Will Cooley, who is placed in front of the net, and he actually goes to the front, doesn't move, screens the goalie, and he's shown that he has the wherewithal to capitalize off rebound chances. And if you look at the first goal last night, just over a minute into the game, it's a shot where Fox walks in, takes the shot, it gets blocked, comes off the end wall, and he's in the position to bury it. And that's something that if you look at the power play over the first 14 games of the season, They were just missing the screen and tip plays in front. They didn't have anybody. They had JT Miller in that spot. But if you look at his power play minutes in Vancouver, that's not where he was. That's not his game, right? And getting a guy like Will Cooley, who I don't think he's going to have the hand-eye coordination that we saw from Chris Kreider, but is willing to go to the dirty areas to screen the goalie. That's all the skill guy really needs to, find those lanes and make some plays happen. So the power play is starting to click a little bit, which is good. They're deeper offensively than they were just by getting these two guys back. It balances out the entire forward rotation. And I think, you look at guys like Sheary and Radish, where they were playing in the lineup. That's where you get the depth, right? Those two guys were not signed to be in the top six where they wound up playing a couple of games. And now that you have Perreault up there, you have Trocheck back, you have Cooley who could rotate around. Those guys are playing where they're more stable and limited minutes, and you could see the effect that it has on the rest of the team. I think that when you look at the defense, though, and this was my concern, is that eventually they were going to get so tired of not scoring that the offense was going to come and the defense was going to fade. And to me, that's key. I'd rather not score 6 goals a game, as nice as it might sound, but score, 3 to 4 if you can, and keep the puck out of your own net. Those are the teams that have long-term success. So we have to make sure that there's the balancing act done here. But ultimately, it's been 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, that we saw. I mean, I think I tweeted it out as well. That might have been the worst period a team has ever played that has scored 4 goals on yesterday against Tampa Bay. Like that was an abysmal period played by the Rangers that you still somehow come out up a goal. And going back to that Will Cooley goal, that's a shot 2 weeks ago where Cooley roofs that and it goes over the net. Like he doesn't bury that under the bar. You know what I mean? It's just like it's little things like that are that end up being the difference. But that was something that I got worried about yesterday. And call me a pessimist, whatever you want. Like they got their show run for basically a period and 2 periods, or maybe a period and a half yesterday against an AHL team in the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. They dominate the first 5 minutes. They get these goals, and then one leaky one goes in. I mean, that's a soft goal. Like, I don't care that it was off the rush and it was a good shot. It's Scott Sabourin. Like I'm not one to go after Igor a ton, or say $11.5 million you're paying him, but listen, you're paying him $11.5 million. I don't care if Scott Sabourin has a rocket ship attached to his stick. You need to make the save. He's got like 3 NHL goals in his career. I watched him in Syracuse play 2 weeks ago. Like you can't let that go in. And then Zemgus Girgensons, first of all, elite name, meme name.
One of the best.
Didn't know he was still playing. Didn't know he was still playing in the league. Yeah, like those are guys that just can't score on Igor Shesterkin. But in doing that, right, like he then, for lack of a better phrase, hung his nuts for the rest of the game and stopped everything that came his way. So to be able to lock back in for Igor was nice, but defensively, it wasn't like a perfect game. Like they gave up plenty of chances in that second period, and Igor was able to make the save. And again, we sort of I feel like I'm nitpicking a little bit here. We've gotten into this, I mean, two games, so it's whatever. The Rangers grab these leads, and then they start taking dumb penalties. Trocheck took 2 in 2 minutes against Nashville. They had basically 4-minute long 5-on-3 with, I believe they gave one up at the end of that. You just can't defend for that long. And then, yesterday, I believe it was, I forgot who it was, took a dumb penalty as well. Might have been Carrick or Trocheck. I'm not sure. I'm actually going to get into the officiating in a little bit, because how the Rangers ended up shorthanded after Shesterkin got jumped, I have no idea, but we'll get into that in a second. So yeah, Igor ends up getting, figuring it out and being good. One thing I was really concerned about yesterday is what was up with Laba, Sheary, and Perreault. What are we doing? Why are we? I get like that. Those are the times, right? You're up 7-3 or 6-3. Like let Gabe Perreault play those top 6 minutes with those guys. Like, why are we line shifting, and why are we putting this kid in? Listen, I love Noah Laba, I love Connor Sheary, but it's not doing anything for Gabe Perreault to put him with these guys. Let him play with the Panarins. Let him play with the Zibanejad's and with the Millers. Like, we can't be doing that, especially in a game that's in hand, and you can just kind of let him go.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Sullivan's comments after the game, and he kind of said that the way that they were rolling out the Kucherov line every other shift, he wanted Cooley on the top line to kind of match it with that, which I get. And if you're going to make that change in that type of game based on that situation, okay. The key to me is when they have this back-to-back this weekend, where's Perreault going to be playing? Because if he's not back into the spot he started at, now we have those issues. But to kind of play the optimist, since Zook's not on the show with us today, even though you could say that the defense was shaky, they had some bad penalties yesterday. That they also Shesterkin gave up a couple of goals he wants back. Sullivan's comments after these wins saying, we've actually scored the goals that we've been looking for, but we haven't played the game that we want to play. Those types of things, they give me some hope, knowing that he's not going to be satisfied just because they're scoring goals. They're still going to be drilling the defensive side of the puck. And the other thing is that game, forget just last year, 2 weeks ago wasn't a game they'd win. If they go up 1-0 in the first minute, right, and Shesterkin comes back and gives up that goal to cut the lead 2-1, you got the feeling that, okay, this might start slipping away fast. But they bared down after the first period, even though they got outplayed. Shesterkin came back, rebounded. They capitalized on their chances that they got, and they found a way to win. So those two things combined are good. They're optimistic for me, right? That means that there's certain things that might be changing in terms of the confidence levels of the team. So I think that Sullivan is the guy to kind of get the most out of this group. Now, you could argue with us, you could argue with anybody, with the wall. It doesn't even matter whether this group is talented enough to get it done. But at the end of the day, they've actually played to a level, analytically at least, on both sides of the puck that we haven't seen in quite some time. And if the bounces start to go their way a little bit more and they find a way to win games where they get outplayed, which was their MO for all these conference final runs, that leads me to think, okay, the tides are starting to turn in the right direction. But I know you want to talk about officiating, that you mentioned the couple of 5-on-3s.
Before you do get into that, I want to pat myself on the back. In one of my group chats with my friends after the first period, this was at 8:07 last night. I said there's going to be 1 or 2 more goals scored in this game. Book it. And there you go. There's 2 more goals scored in the game with the goalie in the net. So those are the games where, like, you watch that first period, and those two coaches are so good at their game plans that, like, that was the most obvious outcome. It's like there's 7 goals scored in that period. Neither coach is going to be happy about it, and the rest of this game is going to be a defensive masterclass, basically.
Yeah, it definitely was. I had a men's league game last night, so I wasn't watching after, the first 15 minutes. But my brother had texted me right before I got on the rink, and he said, oh, my God, 4-3 after 1. And I was like, so they'll settle down. Because like you said, those games, they don't just wind up going 10-8, right? It never works that way. So luckily it was the Rangers side that kind of held the fort down. They got a couple more to build the lead. But before you go on your little officiating rant, you mentioned the 5-on-3s that Nashville had at the end of the game. And before Wood got his hat-trick goal, Lafreniere got blatantly high stick behind the net. No call. 2 seconds later, the puck's in the back of the net. But then you look at the flip side, and the Rangers have everything that they've done, every minor infraction seems to be getting called over the last couple of games. And we keep going back to this where I don't know if it's, our Rangers bias where we're watching a little bit more closely with the penalty disparity between the Rangers and the teams that they play. But it does seem like the Nicky Knack calls go the other team's way a lot more frequently than they go the Rangers' way. And that one, like the game was out of reach. It didn't change anything of the outcome, so there's nothing to really complain about. But it's a blatant high stick. Just call the penalty. And all that does is it builds Igor's confidence. He only gave up 2 goals, but now instead there's a third that he gives up late. It's like that's the type of things that just the refs have to be weary of. Right in front of you, it's a blatant high stick.
Yeah, NHL officiating might be the most it's like a trend, basically. Like you can tell how the game's going to go based off how it started. And what I mean by that is the Rangers yesterday get the first 2 power plays of the game, and I sat there and the Lightning didn't get a call, or the Lightning hadn't had a power play for a little bit, and I sat there and I said the Lightning are getting the next one. And of course, little ticky-tack call goes the Rangers' way because Tampa Bay hasn't gotten a power play yet. That's not officiating, right? Like that's just being a mediator. An official is like, well, you had 7 penalties because you did 7 things that were worthy of penalty. They did nothing. So, or they had 1. So that's how we got to 7-1. Instead, you go down a box score in the NHL and it's like 3-3. Very rarely is a team going to have like 2 or 3 more power plays than the other team. It's all going to be very simple and even. I'm glad that we have 2 different examples here, because my example is with Scott Sabrin yesterday and jumping Igor not jumping, but whacking at his pads, and then the Rangers then jumping Scott Sabrin in that game. So watch that again. If you will go back and watch that video again and the ensuing brawl that kind of happened afterwards, the Rangers end up shorthanded. Vladislav Gavrikov gets 4 minutes. I don't know what the 2 penalties were, but he ends up getting an extra one after Sabrin hits Shesterkin and a whole brawl ensues. Watch it closely and look in the background. You'll see Yanni Gourde shed his gloves with Adam Fox. Yanni Gourde's the only guy with his gloves off. That's a penalty. It's an automatic penalty. You know who doesn't go into the penalty box? Yanni Gourde. And the Rangers end up shorthanded. Again, the game is over. The game is over. So it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, matter. But it's little things like that. Like, how is that missed? There are gloves on the ice. Fox's gloves are still on his hands. The Yanni Gourde's walking around with his bare hands out. How is that call missed? How do the Rangers end up shorthanded there? And again, it's like we're prioritizing Scott Sabrin's. Listen, this is going to come off bad. We're prioritizing Scott Sabrin over Igor Shesterkin's safety here. Like, what are we doing? If anything, it needs to be even. Like, I'm not even saying the Rangers need to get a power play out of that, but it's like, it's just the typical inconsistencies that come up with the officiating that if that happens in a close game, we're talking about it, because the officials are not officiating. They're just simply managing the game. And that's not something that they should be doing. They have to, I'll repeat myself. If a team, if a team has 7 penalties and does 7 things that are warranted of a penalty, and the other team does 2, then that's how it's got to be called. It cannot be 3-3 because we want to give everybody the same opportunity. That's not how this works. If you earn a penalty, if you are lazy or slow or not as talented, you are going to get more penalties than the other teams, and that's just how it goes. So
who was the ref that basically got fired for saying that that's what he was doing?
Oh yeah, he's now like a Twitter guy. Tim Peel. Tim Peel,
right? So Tim Peel basically got let go and his career was ended because of that, right? He basically got caught on the hot mic. But the reality is that's how every ref operates. It's not just a him thing. And you mentioned that most of the time you're not going to see, a couple, the 2 to 3 more power plays given out for one team than the other in a game. The only time you really see it is when that team's down. If they're trailing, all of a sudden things get called really tight. And then you get to the postseason. This is my biggest gripe. You get to the postseason, at least last year I noticed that they were calling a lot of penalties. But you get to the postseason typically, and all of a sudden things get tightened up. This is the same thing I have with baseball home plate umpires. I do not care how often you're going to call something or how little you're going to call something. It just has to be consistent. If a home plate umpire is going to call the outside pitch a strike all game for both teams, you adjust. It's fine. If an NHL referee is going to call a tap of the hands, a hook against the Rangers, and then that same play, which happens 55 times a shift, doesn't get called the rest of the game, well, you've kind of pigeonholed yourself now, right? Because now all of a sudden you're going to have to do what they call a makeup call. So the whole officiating by lack of disparity, right? You don't want to see, this team got 4 power plays, this team got 1. That's not the right way to officiate a hockey game, especially hockey, which is such a fast-moving sport where you could knick-knack infractions throughout the entirety of a game. You got to decide going into the game as a ref what you're going to call and what you're going to let go. And then it has to be consistent. And if five penalties get called on one team because they happen to, break those rules that you were closely monitoring that game, and only 2 get called on the other team, so be it. But it's been since existence of the NHL, that's how it's been called. It's just, and it's not the right way at all. And when it goes against your team, you hate it. When it goes for your team, you try to be a little quieter about it and not complain as much. But I think everybody would agree that we just want to see some sort of consistency here.
Yeah, I feel like we're nitpicking at this point, but we I will say, and really bringing this back to the Rangers, and I feel like it's unfair to mention, but I don't. I think Sam Carrick has had a tough couple games, like specifically these last two. And again, he's a fourth line guy. Like, it's tough to sit here and say Sam Carrick has been bad, but fourth line guys, I feel like shouldn't be talked about a lot. They shouldn't, unless you're Matt Rempe, I guess. But fourth line guys shouldn't be, in the spotlight. Sam Carrick has had some pretty bad turnovers in the last two games that have led to chances and led to goals. I think the one that I think comes to mind right off the bat is the Nashville first goal. I believe it was on Monday night. If memory serves me correctly, he's shorthanded because they scored on the power play. Rangers are shorthanded. He's got the puck in the Nashville zone. And instead of, killing some time, I think he fired it right back to the middle. The same thing that, like, in that San Jose game that Alexis Lafreniere did in the final minute. He fired it, tried to make a pass right into the center of the ice, and ends up going the other way. Instead of killing more time, goes down immediately, puck is in the back of the net. JT Miller sort of did that same thing as well in the Nashville game at the end of the first period when the Rangers had, I believe it was a 3-1 lead at the end of that period, or 2-1 lead. Rangers are breaking out of their own zone with 10 seconds left, and he fires the puck into, I believe it was Will Cooley or Mika Zibanejad's skates. Those are the little things that sometimes they don't end up in the back of your goal and you forget about them. Other times they are the reason that you are trailing in a hockey game. It's little plays like that need to be cleaned up, where if you're shorthanded, you can't be just turning and firing the puck into the middle of the ice towards the blue line, because that's how you end up with odd man rushes the other way. And, JT Miller is prone for firing passes at 1,000 miles an hour into people's skates.
Yeah, see, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, and I don't even know if I would call it nitpicking, but when I watch the Rangers, right, and it's very noticeable for me because the Rangers are the only team that I watch, 90 to 95% of their season. But a play yesterday with Jake Gensel's shorthanded goal. Mika Zibanejad has the puck in the corner. He's pressured. The puck's bouncing. It's not an ideal situation to be a puck carrier. He tries to force the pass to Fox. It winds up flipping in the air and putting Fox in an impossible situation where he's got to try to corral the puck and move it, and it gets stripped, and Gensel goes down and scores. And I noticed that, Mika's a culprit a lot too, especially on the power play, where the mistakes and the turnovers get made going the other way, right? They get made going towards the blue line as opposed to just making the safe play, chipping the puck deep. If that team corrals the puck because you couldn't handle it and they dump it the rest of the way, you regroup, you live to fight another day. But as soon as you try to force that play and make a play that's not there because the puck's bouncing, you don't have full possession, especially going towards the blue line. And the power play, like when you're shorthanded, it's one thing because that should never happen, right? The Carrick going behind the net and trying to force feed it in front when there's nobody with him, that can't happen. But on the power play, when you outnumber the other team and you're in a setup where you automatically have a guy kind of on an island on the point, the turnover cannot happen going to that one guy on the island. If you don't have a clean pass there, either throw it towards the net to create some chaos or put it behind their net and try to work the puck back. It's just, it happens way too often with them where there's a gray area turnover that puts them in an odd man situation going the other way. And I think that if they cut that out of their game, it's very hard to do. And every team does it. I mean, the Rangers have odd man rushes last night. They had it against Nashville too. Every team does it. But if you try to minimize those plays and make a conscious effort where if that puck's bouncing, I'm not going back to Fox at the point, I'm putting it behind the net. Watch how many less goals they allow. It's hockey IQ, hockey knowledge. And in the heat of the moment, when you're trying to make a play, it's very hard to think that way. But I've noticed it a couple of times. The Carrick example, Mika last night, those are just the most recent examples of them force-feeding plays that really aren't there. And those gray area turnovers are death, man. I was 8 years old, and my coach had the whiteboard out, and he circled both blue lines, 5 feet inside, 5 feet outside. He said, these are the areas of the ice you cannot turn the puck over because everybody's momentum's going one way, and next thing you know, the team's on a rush going the other way. And that's what kills them. It's killed them in the playoffs when the last time they made the playoffs, the Mika pass, right, that everybody remembers and everybody talked about for 12 months. That was a gray zone turnover. Cannot happen.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to go into this buy and sell thing that I kind of started a couple weeks ago. Are we buying or selling Alexis Lafreniere's current hot streak?
I'm going to buy. I picked him up in fantasy. I think that we all projected him to pass that 50-point mark this year. I think he's now back with his line mates that he's comfortable with. He's playing with a little bit more confidence. I anticipate that there will be another stretch of 8 games where he's very quiet again. But I think we've seen this before. He knows he has the skill. It's just been a matter of utilizing it. He finally started shooting the puck off the rush. You saw the goal last night against Vasilevsky. That was just a perfect shot. And he has 8 assists this year. So he's starting to make plays. And there's been probably 6 or 7 chances I can recall off the top of my head where he probably should have gotten a few more points off of that. So I'm buying that he's going to continue riding this a little bit. I'm not buying the fact that he might be an 85-point guy, but I think he's going to crack 50. So I'll buy it. I'll buy it for now. I have to.
What an
absolutely
first overall crazy sentence to say. He's not an 85-point guy, but he might break 50. I mean, listen. We do have a section of this fan base that will say he's a 100-point scorer. No shade at anybody that does think that. Yeah, he will never score 100 points ever again. Like he is. It's not in his game.
Now, listen, man, if he does it, we're all going to be ear to ear smiles. There hasn't been that consistency, but who knows, man?
No,
maybe
that's
he's
the thing.
The type of guy that maybe he'll follow the Kreider mold where he hits 30 and all of a sudden he really figures it out.
That's my thing with Lafreniere. It is the consistency. How many times have we seen him go through 8, 9, 10 game stretches where it looks really good and the numbers are there? But then how many times does that immediately flip around and it's 9, 10, 11 games of no points, bad defense, no hockey IQ in his own zone? So listen, he has earned these chances. He has earned these opportunities. He's earned these goals and points, I think, by the way he's played the game over the last few weeks. But to sit here and suggest that he's going to be an 80, 85, 90-point guy, it's just I don't think it's in the cards. Like, unfortunately, I think 55 to 60 points is probably the plateau for him. And again, if he's able to stay healthy and that line's able to stay healthy and Panarin is able to continue what Bald Panarin does, he's going to rack up the points just by happenstance. Like we talked, Zuckel always joked that 2 years ago, Panarin, if you and me were on a line with Panarin, we probably would have had 25 points in the NHL as well. So, it's just, I think I've seen this movie happen with Lafreniere before, where you've seen him have these good stretches. It's just a matter of, can he continue to not just keep up the good stretches, but have these bad stretches not be 10 games without a point, but maybe 2, and over a 10-game sample size, instead of like a point, maybe 5, right? Like just being able to keep that consistency. So I'm like a hesitant buy on Alexis Lafreniere. I got to see it for a longer period of time. That's all I'll say on that one. More on the buy or sell. Are we buying that Bald Panarin is a Hall of Famer? I mean, it's uncanny.
Are we talking about just stats as a bald man, or are we talking about overall body of work?
I think we're talking about just Bald Panarin stats. Is Bald Panarin bringing this team to a Stanley Cup, and is Bald Panarin a Hall of Famer?
If he was bald,
that's more of a joke. I'm more buying or selling Panarin being bald and now finding his game again. Has Panarin found his game?
Yes. I think that he's one of those players, right? And that I actually respect it, where he knows when he's not playing up to his level, and he realizes and he plays into the fact that it's a mental thing, right? Having hair or not having hair does not change what you could do with the puck on your stick. But for him, he knows that if he changes something personally, it'll kind of clear that fog, right? And he can say, okay, this is a new situation, clear my head. And I wish that more of his teammates would kind of take that mold. At the end of the day, it's just a game. If you had a bad 60 minutes, you shake it off, you find a way to regroup and come back the next night. If you're going through one of those funks, which it doesn't matter who the player is, the best players in the world all go through funks. If you find a way that works for you where you can clear your head and move on, then yeah, you do it. And for him, he's found it, right? He's shaved his head. He's done it twice now as a member of the Rangers, and both times it seems to have worked for him. I don't know if it's Hall of Fame worthy, but kudos to him for finding a way to clear his head.
Yeah, I think the amount of times we talk about the mental side of the game and how sometimes the Rangers feel like they're stuck in that mental side of the game, to have a guy like Panarin, who, again, I've heard nothing but good things about the guy as off the ice. Like, he's just a clown, and like in the good way. So he is the guy to sit there and have this luscious head of hair and just be like, give me the razor. It's got to go. Like, I would. Mika's not doing that. As much as I would love, I made a joke about it, before the Islander game, that they were shaving Mika's head in the parking lot just to make sure that the home juju was back. It clearly wasn't at that point. That's a guy that gets it. That's a guy that gets, the wherewithal to lean into the joke. Because obviously, hair or no hair is not going to make you a better hockey player. It might make you half a pound lighter. Maybe you're a little bit quicker. Who knows? But to see Trocheck getting just ragdolled by the team after he scored the second goal, that's the vibe stuff that we haven't really seen a ton of last year and this year. That Colt 45's playing after the game. Those are that's vibe. Like, that is we could talk about pen and paper and X's and O's for an hour on this show, but if you got guys that are not happy coming to the rink and are not enjoying themselves when they get to the rink and when they're playing a game, because at the end of the day, it is a game. If you have these guys that are enjoying themselves when they get there, think of Panarin, again, think of Trocheck, and that's why I feel like this team has been able to click since Trocheck has come back, is he is, on top of being a very talented NHL player, he's a vibes guy. Like, the amount of times you'll see him just being a clown on the bench or on the ice or in warmups or in practice, that's the energy that this team needs, especially after what we've seen for the last, year and a half, 18 months, basically. So the vibes seem to be getting better. I am more hesitant to sit here and say this team's fully back, but the vibes are in a good spot right now. And I think if they can continue this play, listen, you got 7 games, and I know we're going to be back in between these episodes, and they're not going to play all these games, but these 7 games where you play Columbus, Detroit, Vegas, Colorado, Utah, Carolina, if you can somehow scrounge out 3, so that's 6, 7, 8, maybe 8 points. You can scrounge out 7 or 8 points in those 7 games with how difficult those teams are. I think you're looking pretty, especially having to go back out west again. For some reason, the NHL schedule makers are having them go out twice in the first month and a half of the year. No clue why that is, but the vibes can be pretty good in a week or two if they're able to show like they belong. Or we could be back in the toilet like we have been for the majority of this season, and they just get boat raced by Vegas and boat raced by Carolina and boat raced by Colorado, and you're like, well, they're just not in that stratosphere.
I need a 4-2-1 7-game stretch to feel like they're back in it. I think that's what you need to carry. I got one buy sell for you before we wrap up. Are you buying or selling the fact that Vincent Trocheck's the real captain of this team?
I think I'm buying it in the sense that the Rangers seem to have like the captain that is not the captain. Like, Kreider, we'd always assume, is the captain. He was the longest tenured Ranger. He was there through all the ups and downs, and it felt like when the media was up their ass last year, but rightfully so, he was the guy that was answering the questions. He was the guy that, when Trouba was traded, immediately he was the guy that stepped up into that role. Trocheck, to a degree, also stepped up into that role. Trocheck is now one of the more longer tenured players on this team, which is crazy to say, but he is now a guy that has seen the good. They've seen the bad of what this organization can be. And whenever shit hits the fan, or if it's going good, he's the guy that's usually talking. So I would buy that he is the people's captain. I think the fan base sees him as the captain, and I think he's able to really bring a locker room together. And listen, I'm not dogging on JT Miller. Like, if JT, first of all, I don't think he's healthy again, which is just asinine that we're continuing to have this conversation 20 games into the year almost. I don't think JT's healthy. but I do like the no BS. And I think it's gotten clowned on a lot this year because they started like shit at home, right? But at the same time, go and listen to his post game press conferences. Go and listen to him speak. There's no throwing anybody under the bus. It is being holding people accountable. And for some reason, we are in a space, whether it just be hockey Twitter or just the way the world is in general, where you try and hold people accountable and it's taken as something that it isn't. So I am a huge fan of JT Miller as a captain. I think he is the perfect captain for this team, for this franchise, for what they've gone through over the last 18 months. There's no BS is still in the organization. I think holding people accountable is what JT Miller does best. I think Vincent Trocheck is more the vibes guy. He's more the vibes, he's going to keep the vibes up and be able to answer those questions when it doesn't go well. So I think both are true. You can have both be captain, one in the sense of the physical captain and one in the emotional captain. I think Vinny is the emotional captain.
Yeah, I think JT Miller is more like the drill sergeant, and then Vinny Trocheck's like that platoon leader that you get that everybody really likes, right? I think that JT Miller knows that, or knew at least coming into the season, what happened last year, and that it needed to be more law and order inside of that locker room, and needed to be more goals focused. The results, like you said, at home at least haven't happened so far this season, but they're still 9-7-2. So you got to tip your cap to him. He's not playing his best hockey by any stretch of the imagination, but the Rangers are slowly starting to find their game. And then I think Vinny Trocheck is that glue guy. He's the guy that everybody likes. He brings that mojo. I think people play more loose when they're around him just because his game is that way. Right? He's chirping. He's in the middle of everything. He's having fun. And like you said, the celebration after his second goal, I haven't seen that since the OT celebration against Carolina, where everybody was that happy for somebody scoring. So I agree with you. I think that there's literally two leaders on this team. You have the vocal guy that wants everybody to do the right things at all times and is going to handle the interviews the proper way in JT Miller. And then you have Vinny Trocheck, who inside that room is just the go-to guy for, it looks like, the majority of this team, which you love to see. So any final thoughts before we wrap up? First episode we've done in a while where we actually had wins to talk about strung together. So back-to-back W's. We'll see what happens this weekend. But any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, just keep the good play going. And listen, Columbus isn't a world beater. Detroit is not a world beater. Those are winnable games that they could have. And, if we sit here come, Monday morning and they've won, 4 straight, including 2 at home, they're probably in a spot where they're second or third in the Metro. Like, we're getting closer and closer to this arbitrary Thanksgiving deadline where how these teams shape up is usually how they end. Unfortunately, we saw last year that wasn't necessarily the case with the Rangers, but this is a much different feeling team than it was last year. So they're in a playoff spot right now. It's November 13th. Like, I'm not getting ahead of ourselves, but the play is the results are starting to match the play, especially being able to just get that monkey off the back and winning on home ice. So just win a game on Saturday or Friday, win a game, or is it Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Win a game on Saturday, win a game on Sunday. And, we'll be talking in next week. Hopefully they've won 4 straight. And we'll say that they're back.
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like this year, if they were in that playoff spot come Thanksgiving, the system at least should prevail. You would think towards the end of the season. And, they haven't played well at home, but they do have a lot of the 7-game stretch coming up. And for the early portion of the season, they do have a large chunk of road games where they finish the year. I think they have a 7-game homestand last couple of months. So you want to get those kinks out now while you're playing well on the road and getting those road games under your belt. And maybe that, script kind of flips towards the second half of the season and they are playing better at home when the majority of their home games are. So all positive things this episode.
Also, Jets and Pats tonight. Go Jets. I saw Garrett Wilson. They put on the IR. So lovely, but go Jets. That's all I'll say.
It's whatever. That's a garbage team. All right. Well, no football talk on this episode, which was nice until the end, and you had to ruin it. But we'll see what happens this weekend, back to back, and it's going to be a fun stretch. Hopefully everybody's ready for another week of late night hockey next week, and we'll be back next Thursday to chat about the games that we have all watched over the weekend and early next week. So we'll see you then.